Right. We turned up mostly to see what we could do on the data cleansing side and data quality and data validation. And we have a mouse which doesn't work. My colleagues, when we swap laptops, will show you the front end for the work we did on the ethnic cleansing, which is data which we provided for our colleagues as well to demonstrate. And the data set and the rules were very, very small. So we did what we could, we moved on. We looked for other things to do, so we wrote a very small framework, which is, I can show you in code, I can show it running, but there's no massive, at the code level, anything interesting. Beyond that, we didn't keep ourselves to one tech. We used two different rule engines, Aerodyne and Rules. We wrote a raw Pojo processor so that you can, if you wish, using this framework, tidy it up a bit, but it's the basics of it are there. Write any simple Java object which gets processed by whatever implementation you want. We wrote a piece of code which connects to .NET to run the validation via .NET module you've written or via service which you provided on the net. All of that gets aggregated. The ethnic stuff was one of the things. We did that one in one tech. We did postcodes, gender, data entry errors. We did, what was other categories? Postcode, gender, there was another one at least. And all of these get into, in the way we did it, into one validation table, which is the input to what my colleague is going to show when we get as far as him. Then we sort of went again with consultation with the people here, further off-piste and asked for other things to do. We sort of split our own team into like 3 different teams and did different things. One of them was investigating what we were told by one of the BAs was an issue in that they do there's a process where data gets entered at the provider. At the end of the entire process, they find that the wrong sort of operation is being done on the wrong gender. So it's most probably a data entry error, but it would be good if earlier in the process you could identify the fact that these are being done on the wrong gender and at least query in case there's some interesting gender issues going on. And so the provider can say, no, we really meant gender X rather than Y, chromosome Y rather than X. But doing that, we found an interesting thing in that in the 2 of your tables in the data set, I assume it's not deliberate, the gender codes are not done using the same codes. So in one of them, it follows the gender table template provided in one of the lookup tables where 1 means male, 2 means female, 0 means unknown, 9 means unspecified. In the other table, it actually means the other way around. 1 and 2 mean the opposite things. Either that or 99% of operations in NHS are done on the wrong gender. So, and we did go and start doing some sanity checks because we were querying the actual data set, whether that operation was something which should not be done on the gender reported. And as you can see by the name of the treatment, it does indeed imply that 2, which was the one associated with it, should be about male, whereas in the other table 2 is about female. So that's one of the things which we did by digging around. It's just simple, once we have an understanding of the data structures and the data sets, it's reasonably simple process to go from that to a number of these sort of validations and loop backs and report backs we can start querying and down the line possibly make it as part of the data entry. Are you sure that you wish to assign this operation? Because it's most probably wrong. Override, yes, no. Which would hopefully reduce the amount of the headaches you have in the middle with things not making sense. That was that. Then we looked into something again that was mentioned by I think the gentleman's name is Andrew, not you, sir.
Andrew Hall. Yeah.
Andrew Hall. And he was talking about how both in the current NHS data set and in the forthcoming social care data set, there is a lot of free text entry. And you have issues regarding how best to identify, how to best data mine that, how to best identify phrases that can be alerts, phrases that can become something which gets dragged out to a checkbox and entry. There's nothing interesting on the screen yet, I'll explain it. So it was a bit of free-form natural language analysis and searching of those boxes. The data set you have at the moment, for very sensible reasons, has got all those fields nulled out. So, because there is stuff you cannot use to identify those fields. So again, we confirmed that it was okay and went ahead and invented our own texts, invented our own sample fields, which has gone walkies. So my colleague who's not here today with us just did some random text generation from some phrases we put together. And there's a number of reports which just got random words, random phrases in it. The application, when it starts up, at that stage, indexes all these files. Admittedly, it's only 100 files, but you can imagine if it's done properly, you can have this done, stored in a database, rather than doing it live. This happens to be more or less, because the texts were not very well randomized, you can see how all the words are very prevalent, number of incidences of those words. But it easily change the randomization, or more importantly, in the actual real data, yeah, occurrence of words would be interesting, but that's not the real thing. The more interesting thing is, keep in mind that there is no actual intermediary table maintaining these in some random, some caching. I can say, show me when there's children. These reports have the word children in them. For example, this one, children and parent. Also, if and which is a nominative in the word, children and broken. I think that's the case sensitive. Thank you. So you can start actually searching for the word children and drugs. And this is using standard open source industry accepted technologies. Now, of course, the number of reports I'm finding, the repetition, how the reports seem to be in all the searches I do, is just because the data we produced was bad. But if the underlying data was okay, then we get more interesting results. You could easily do occurrences of phrases rather than occurrences of words. And then you can see phrases appearing too often. Perhaps there should be a checkbox or option on your form, whether it's paper or electronic. There's a whole entire section of things you can do from here. Automatic alerts, if these words appear in the same text field, generate some alert, an email, look at these 3 files. It's not just about NHS, it's not just about social care, it's anywhere you got general text entry, same tech can be used. Right, some of my notes I don't understand anymore. I was quickly writing them down, trying to remind myself what we've done. The other next category of things we did was, one of your business analysts pointed out that they have just recently published a prescription data at the GP level. So we did a bit of exploring of that data set, which is not one of the data sets you provide for the hackathon, but we got it from the open data government NHS website place. And we, description, right. Join that set of data to set of data from again open off the internet about the deprivation of deprivation ratings in different postcodes. So I couldn't explain to you what the deprivation numbers mean, but more or less seems to be 0 is a well-off area. The higher the number, the worse off the area. And we matched up the postcode of the GPs, the practices, postcode to the deprivation area of the area they're serving, trying to find if there was any correlation. We didn't get as far as normalizing the data for the population level, which will affect things, which will also, as well, things like the type of area, urban or rural, but just by doing the data we had, you can see we just searched for a drug which has got the word begins with the word meta for the different the varieties of the stuff. We could easily make them more complex. It can become a free entry form of a GUI-based approach. Codes entered, whatever you wish. The data which is returned, in here you can see that more or less as the deprivation rating increases, there seems to be an increase of the number of prescription lines with those drugs in it. We graphed it using Excel yesterday. Excel. And to our surprise, there was a recognizable curve. This could be because of the population sizes. So we're not actually in a position to say there's obviously that around these areas you will have more. It just could be that in the supposedly richer or supposedly very few places where there are that level of deprivation, there's much less population, therefore the number of prescriptions per person is. But at this level, it looks an interesting curve. Interesting, especially this one, dots which are developed beyond the expected projected curve.
Recognize that dot.
For the basic approach, we've here looked for a drug. People have mentioned things like methadone, which is a drug for drug addicts, normally, from what I understand. So you might be, as a person on the street, interested in having an app which consumes this sort of data for, do I want to buy a house in that area? Other people have mentioned examples like, if there are 3 GPs in my area, which one do I sign up for? Which one gives me more headache pills when I ask for it? That was actually your own BA's recommendation, by the way. This is again not done at a postcode level, this is done at the deprivation level. You could link the postcode to any other type of thing you want, or just if the doctor moves from one place to place, can you track that doctor and see if he's giving up more? How come this, as part of the same data set, there are equivalent drugs? So we haven't bothered in this one making the two, because we didn't have the data, the 2 types of drug X which are the equivalent. Why is this GP always giving that drug, the expensive version, not the cheap version? There are costs, the net costs and the base costs. I can't remember the exact name of the second one. How come constantly one postcode or one GP is charging costing the NHS too much for the same amount of benefit given to the eventual consumers, the patients? So you can see this can go to many angles or many sort of products or deployments. And that more or less brings, except for my colleague is going to show what brings us to today. Today we have concentrated on deployment mostly. So we've just managed to, I believe, get under the wire and get some stuff to our support people. I'm not sure what's come of it yet, what stage it's at, but hopefully we can go all the way with that. We tried a bit of, instead of using Excel to demonstrate this stuff, doing this straight in the Java using some of the, again, open source technologies for drawing these graphs. We can do it, we just decided in the end to stop that and concentrate on the deployment. We did some analysis of our performance with the databases. We found that there were some places where we had bottlenecks and there was slowing down some of the stuff we were doing, so we made them redesigned and altered our database structures, add some indexes, etc., to make it better and faster.